the time has come for us to welcome our first speaker of the day. The one thing that we all have in common at this conference is that we work with e-government in one way or another. And we for sure know that working with e-government is not a goal in itself. Instead, it's something that we do together, trying to make our society and the world a better place. And as I said before, that's also the theme for this year's conference, how digitization can help us make more with less. And one of the most important things in developing e-government is to understand what you can do better and what others are doing better already. That means looking beyond our own municipality, our own region, our government agencies, and of course also beyond our own borders. The United Nations publishes its comprehensive e-government study every other year, and the new 2018 version just came out a few months ago. And we are so happy and honored to welcome the Chief of Digital Government at the UN to tell us more about it. So let's give a big round of applause for Mr. Vincenzo Acquaro.
I'm so impressed about this wonderful audience. And also looks strange to me to speak before my previous boss, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. Good morning, sir. You're welcome. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure and honor to be here today to present the United Nations e-Government Survey 2018. On behalf of United Nations Under-Secretary General for Economic and Social Affairs, I would like to extend our deep appreciation to the host, the city of Stockholm, and to the organizers for this important conference for inviting the United Nations to be present of this event in Stockholm. This year's e-government survey, subtitled Gearing e-Government to Support Transformation Towards Sustainable and Resilient Societies, contains a great amount of data, cases and findings about such effects and how e-government matters for sustainable growth and development. My presentation will draw on some key findings and insight of the e-government survey in 2018. Okay. 3 years back, in September 2015, world leaders adopted the ambitious Agenda for Sustainable Development that contains of 17 goals and 169 targets. This is a phenomenal achievement for all countries and all people on this planet. We are now approaching the end of the 3 years since the 2030 Agenda for SDGs started its implementation phase. We are now in what we call the means of implementation. We see progress and tractions, but also urgent and pressing action if we were to fulfill the ambitious agenda by 2030. Technologies, particularly digital government, are intricately linked to the development of today's societies and play an important role to the successful implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As agreed by all countries, global sustainable development is being guided by what we call the 5 Ps: prosperity and peace for the planet and for all people through partnership at all levels. The principle of leaving no one behind should also be applied, in particularly when we consider digital government as a development tool, as it is a powerful enabler and a driver to achieve the SDGs. Let me go just back on this, and let me give you quickly who we are, what we do. The United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs holds up the development pillar of the United Nations Secretary, working towards a common goal to promote the social, economic, and environmental dimension of sustainable development. UNDESA Works Program can be categorized into three main areas: the intergovernmental support to the United Nations General Assembly and to the United Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, including the high-level political forum and the ECOSOC subsidiary bodies, research and analysis for government to use in their deliberation and decision-making, and capacity development, assisting interested government in translating these policy frameworks into their national programs. For the research and the analytical part, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, through the division of public institutions and digital government, focus more on the SDGs 16, as in particular on effective, inclusive, and accountable institutions, and on digital government and digital transformation to achieving the SDGs. Major products and activities of the divisions are the United Nations eGovernment Survey Program, and research and development on digital government and frontier new fast-evolving technologies applied to the government. The eGovernment Survey, as we call, it is a flagship publication of the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. It contains the content of the surveys is mandated by multiple General Assembly and ECOSOC resolutions, with the first one dated in March 2004, starting that the member states welcomed e-government initiatives as a tool to promote development and stressed the need for capacity building and e-government initiatives as a tool to promote and to drive development. So, what is the United Nations eGovernment Survey? First of all, it is issued every 2 years since 2003. It is the only report in the world that assesses the e-government development status for all member states, 193 member states. And it is used as a benchmark tool to measure e-government development, build government's capacities, provide policy recommendations, and share good practices from around the world. Some numbers. The eGovernment Survey has received high marks from external users and has been used as a reference for several prestigious international organizations, academia, and public and private research institutes. A recent rigorous bibliometric analysis on the usage of the United Nations eGovernment Survey reported about 75,000 citations in 2017 alone. With more than 5 million of hits, it is one of the most downloaded publications from UNDESA and attracts attention from press and media worldwide. And I think this is also the reason why I'm here. The United Nations eGovernment Survey has come a long way. In 2001, where we first started research about e-government, it was still a very new concept, especially among the developing and least developed countries. We launched the first completed UN e-government survey in 2003. The 2018 edition is the 10th edition of tracking the states of e-government development achieved by all member states at the United Nations. The survey is not designed to capture e-government development in absolute terms. Rather, it aims to give an indicative assessment to the e-government performance of national governments related to one another. Since 2001, the methodological framework has remained consistent across survey periods, even as its subcomponents have been updated to reflect the new trends in e-government, as well as new indicators for telecommunication and human capital. So what is new in 2018 edition? the 2018 eGovernment survey is organized in 3 parts. In the first one, we consider the ways in which, using digital technology, governments are responding to shocks emanating from natural and man-made disaster and other types of crises. There are 4 chapters of the survey that focusing on eGovernment as an effective tool for anticipating and responding to disaster and for building eGovernment resilience within the principle of the 2030 agenda. Strengthening resilience is at the heart of the SDGs and is thus essential for sustainable progress. The 2018 survey considers the way in which, using digital technology, governments are responding to shocks emanating from natural and man-made disaster and other types of crises. The survey acknowledged the progressive resilience of digital technologies in managing emerging responses, performing essential function, and swiftly recovering from crisis. This is a kind of function also that is implemented a lot at local level. Digital technologies, application, and geographical information system play important role in disaster risk management. By comparing satellite images and before and after disaster, for example, disaster management authorities can estimate the type and magnitude of potential and actual damage. Digital technology applications, space technologies, and geographical information systems also contribute together to assessing vulnerabilities, reducing risk, and preventing and preparing for disasters. So, first part of the survey is always about some specific topics and is linked with SDGs. The second part is the part related to the eGovernment assessment and the ranking for all member states. So we have 3 chapters that reviews and analyze the global, regional, national, and for the first time also a pilot of local trends on digital government. The survey assesses the eGovernment development status at all member states according to a quantitative composite index methodology that we call the eGovernment Development Index, or EGDI. The Online Service Index, or the OSI, which measures the scope and quality of the online services, the Telecommunication Infrastructure Index, or TII, which measures the development status of telecommunication infrastructure, and the Human Capital Index of the, or HCI, which measures the inherent human capital of the subject country. Our methodology, we still believe that, that it's really important to have these 3 main components. One about the online presence and service delivery using internet. Second one is about infrastructure, so internet connectivity, affordability, accessibility, and usage. And the third one, human capital. Taking consideration that this is a publication that covers at glance all member states. So for some issues that for developed countries such as Sweden are given for grant, for others are still big challenges. And then the third part, what also about the online service index, so the first indicator. The online service index is obtained mainly by collecting data from each country using an online service questionnaire as guiding tool for our independent assessment. For 2018 survey, we put in place a task force of more than 300 people working worldwide in order to cover all member states and all the languages. The online service questionnaires, OSQ, was also expanded to include indicators able to capture most of the sustainable development goals of the 2030 agenda and the principle of leaving no one behind. So we look more of the inclusive part of the services that need to be provided for all, and in particular with the focus of the SDG 16. The goal 16 is just the entry level. From the 16, we will reach the other goals. But the 16, just for the one that is not familiar, is more about the inclusive, accountable, and the openness institutions at all levels. So an updated and detailed also member state questionnaire was launched also in 2017 and provided to member states to gather detailed information about the efforts of governments in e-government development as complementary tool for data collections. We sent 193 questionnaires to member states. This time we received, I think now 101. It's a big result. Normally the percentage is about 20%, 30%. This time we cover more than 50%. The list of the online service questions and indicators assessed in this edition of the United Nations E-Government Survey was also made available for the first time in the annexes. So before, the policy was not to share all these informations. On the 2000 E-Government Survey, I have a few copies here, but you can download from our portal, the electronic copy. All the indicators, all the assessment we have done is there, so it's completely transparent. And for the first time, a pilot review of 40 municipalities from different regions worldwide was conducted. There were also ranking through a local online service index. Why only 40? It was the first time we have done this. And it's also a way to pilot and to test the methodology. So we are also open and very interesting to receive feedback from all of you on this, because we need to understand how we can expand and we can cover at least all the municipalities, each municipality for all the countries, so at least 193. We don't look only at the capital. There are several criteria, for sure the dimension, but also GDP, the area. So about these 40 municipalities, I think 38 are capitals, but the other 2 are not capitals. And the third part is also very important. It's about in the survey, we analyze how government, in close collaboration with private sector and academia, are studying fast evolving technologies and how the results and the outcomes of the implementation of these technologies, such as artificial intelligence, deep machine learning, blockchain, could be used and adapted for service delivery in public administrations. Artificial intelligence, big data, blockchains, deep machine learning, indeed are powerful tools to increase government efficiency, effectiveness, accountability, and inclusiveness in providing service delivery. The use of this frontier technology may create new opportunities for development and economic growth in almost every aspect of government, like healthcare, law enforcement, food security, crisis mitigation, and others. And government can utilize the advantages offered by these new frontier technologies in providing a wide array of services, but which at the same time are tailored to the specific needs of each citizen at a 24/7 basis. So there is a switch on the way that the government can provide services. These services designed with information gleaned from big data, as well as those obtained through improved citizen engagement, and can drastically improve the interaction between government and its citizens, so also a powerful tool for e-participation and citizen engagement. How is now referred to as the fourth industrial revolution has the potential to change our societies and enhance our way of life, and at, as they say, a fast and furious pace. But as started by the Undersecretary General of Economic and Social Affairs, there is a need to consider the unprecedented challenges introduced by these new frontier technologies. Without careful planning and design, for example, artificial intelligence has the potential to harm vulnerable populations, reinforce existing inequalities, widen digital divides, and adversely affect jobs and economies. For this reason, the 2030 Agenda's principle of leaving no one behind should always be applied also for new technology and AI for achieving the SDGs. AI is already an indispensable and universal resource for the humanity, but must be equally distributed within and among countries and be available for everyone or every government, no matter its own level of development or capacity. So this is a really big challenges. So I would like to make good use of the last minutes of my presentation to share some insight from our recent eGovernment survey. Global trend. The eGovernment and digital government has grown rapidly over the past 17 years since the first attempt of the United Nations to benchmarking eGovernment. At a glance, the United Nations eGovernment survey highlights a positive global trends toward higher levels of eGovernment development. You can see, looking at the different colors. Countries in all regions are increasingly embracing innovation and utilizing ICTs to deliver services and engage people in decision-making processes. One of the most important new trends is the advancement of people-driven services. It addresses the growing demand for more personalized services that reflect individual needs, as well as people's aspiration to be more closely engaged in designing and delivery of services. These new demands are transforming the way the public sector operates. In the same time, disparities remain within and among countries. In 2018 survey, based on our index, we have 40 countries that score very high as compared to only 29 countries in 2016. So you can see the green arrow. And countries in the low GDI, consequently, level, have dropped for a significant 50% compared to the 2016 assessment. At a glance, the regional EGDI average in 2018 mirrored those of previous surveys. So the trend is not changing, in which Europe continues to lead with the highest regional EGDI, followed by the Americas. When I say Americas, it means North, South, Central, and Caribbean. So the United States and Canada also are affected by the other countries. Asia, very close to Americas. Oceania, and last one, Africa. Examining previous trends, there has been no change in regional positions since 2003. So the behavior of the regions is almost the same. It looks that Asia is going to move faster than Americas. But despite some development gains and investment in technology in several countries, digital divides continue to persist. If we look at the African region, for example, only 4 countries out of 54 score higher than the world average. At the same time, disparity remained also within countries. And the use of digital technology may create a new opportunity for developing countries to bridge the digital divide. However, why developed countries that have existing technological infrastructure experience the benefits of such innovations, many other countries are potentially left behind adding another dimension to the already widening digital divide. So this part is still very critical. And now let's have a look a little bit more on the ranking. These are the top leaders in the world. In presenting the 2018 ranking, it is important to reiterate that the eGovernment Development Index is a normalized, broad relative index. And each edition of the survey is a snapshot at the moment we do the assessment. So the GDIs works more as a proxy for macro consideration and not as fine-tuned key performance indicator. This is very important because sometimes policymakers and they want to give a different meaning of the ranking, and they look too much at the ranking and not of the group, in which group you are, and more on what have you achieved. It means that dropping a few positions in ranking does not necessarily imply that the country had underperformed in that specific 2-year survey period. Nor does higher ranking always mean better or more desirable outcomes, especially if it is referred to a country belonging to the same GDI level. So that's why we have these 4 groups: very high GDI, high GDI, mid GDI, low GDI. So these are really the top leader in the world, no matter in which position they are. And if you compare these results with other international ranking, you will see the group of countries that almost are there. Of course, this is the only one that covers 193. The other, you have the European Commission, benchmarking tool, and other that don't cover all the member states. So every hints analysis and policymakers should caution against misinterpreting, even slightly, changes in ranking among closely ranked countries. Every country should determine the level and extent of its digital government objective based on its specific national development context, capacity, strategy, and programs, and never on an arbitrary assumption of its future position in the ranking. This is something that we always observe, that we have delegation from different countries that come to us and they say, oh, we are already working in order to advance 15 position, 20 position in the ranking. We want to be number 3 in 5 years from now. This is something that you cannot predict at all, because you can work and you have to work on your national development plan and the implementation at national level, but you are not able to affect how the other countries are doing. In any case, for Sweden, this is not an issue, because first you didn't drop, but you went up, and you are really one of the top leaders in the world, not only in Europe. This is only the part related to the online service index. So Sweden is also part of the leading countries, as I said, on the very high OSI ranking. And these are the top 4. Let's look at a little bit on more detail. So ranking 5th out of 193 member states, stepping up 1 level from 2016. This time was very, very challenging, because realigning the OSI also on the principle of SDGs and that also makes some big challenges for our country. So even to keep the position was a big result, but increasing is even much better. Stepping so up 1 level from 2016 ranking highlights the successful implementation of the Swedish government's digital policy, contributing to its competitiveness, full employment, and economic, social, and environmentally sustainable development. Swedish OSI is 0.94, really very high. Also, e-participation index, that is a sub-index also that we assess. and also and the overall GDI is 0.882, indicating that there is a very high level of e-government services offered and used. But it must be reiterated that the differences in actual numbers of the indices with Europe are very minimal, and that the difference in actual experience is probably barely discernible to the citizen enjoying these services. If we go back here, you also will see that almost all the European countries from the European Commission, our regional group is bigger than the one that belong to the European Commission, but almost all the European countries are here because that is also the overall framework of the European Commission, that they also provide guidelines on e-government, and at national level all the countries are implementing, and also becomes a very positive competitive driver for all of them. Just to explain, because normally the question is, but why we are not number one? There is still an issue on telecommunication infrastructure, means that need to be done more on broadband. And because this is a global trend, all the countries are moving a lot on mobile, it's natural, and also wireless. But it's still important, the broadband, the fixed broadband, especially for business. So that part need to be really covered a little bit. So this is really why the Sweden is really not number one. I'm sure that if the broadband was a little bit more advanced, it could be number one in the world if I look the other indicators. In any case, all this information in details, you can compare the sub-indicators, you can compare different years, you can compare different countries, are on our e-knowledge, e-government knowledge database that is available online. And you can play a little bit with the number. You can download also the data, and you can make your own analysis on it. So, in conclusion, at the United Nations, one important also, sorry, I just missed one. Yes, this one. In conclusion, one global trend that we cannot deny is digitalization. This has brought about a disruptive transformation of the governments around the world. We are now living in what some will call the post-digital age, also known as the fourth industrial revolution. Indeed, the new technologies has expanded policy options that literally did not exist and recently as few decades. In the resolution adopted by United Nations General Assembly last year, member states recognize that the pace and scope of rapid technological change can have far-reaching implications, both positive and negative, for the achievement of sustainable development, and requiring international and multi-stakeholder cooperation in order to benefit from opportunities and address challenges. At the United Nations, one important also upcoming global event is the Internet Governance Forum, IGF. IGF is a global multi-stakeholder platform that facilitates the discussion of public policy issues pertaining to the Internet. At the IGF, digital transformation and the impact of the new frontier technologies have always been considered as a key issue. The 13th IGF will be hosted by the government of France at the headquarters of UNESCO in Paris from 12 to 14 November 2018. I invited all of you to participate. So I invited distinguished experts here to participate and to contribute to digital dialogue on deploying digital transformation for sustainable development. Also, an important issue, in July this year, the Secretary General launched the high-level panel on digital cooperation, co-chaired by Ms. Melinda Gates from the United States and Mr. Jack Ma from China, the Alibaba owner. This panel is tasked to map trends in digital technologies, identify gaps and opportunities, and outline proposals for strengthening international cooperation. This is very important because give the perception how for United Nations digital transformation and digital cooperation is strategic. Such work is important to assure a safe and inclusive digital future for all. We need to bring together policy and decision makers with industries and academic communities to help government to include the new frontier issues into their digital transformation processes. New technologies in ICTs impact almost every aspect of development and indeed is an invaluable tool that can help achieving the 17 SDGs and leave no one behind principle. As DESA, we are ready and willing to work with you to further spread the benefit of this technology to a wider audience. For this reason, 2030 Agenda's principle, leaving no one behind, should also be applied for new frontier technologies, such as artificial intelligence, for achieving the SDGs. AI is already an indispensable universal resource for the humanity, but must be equally distributed within and among countries and be available for everyone or every government, no matter its own level of development and capacity. In this regard, we recommended that all innovative multi-stakeholder participatory framework for digital transformation should be identified, developed, and shaped by institutions and policies at all levels, so local, national, and global level. We need to work together, cross-border and cross-disciplinary, for a collective effort to create the condition to make digital government and new frontier technologies more inclusive, more accessible, and more affordable from everyone. It's really time for leaving no one offline. Thank you so much.